What's up, everybody, and welcome back to this week's Every Week We Follow. We're now onto our Sunderland preview, which is a Sunday 2:00 kickoff at Villa Park. I've got the wonderful DJB from Fanalysis, a fellow fanalist. I haven't seen him since the launch party, and I think we've just been talking off air, and I am finally sober enough to talk to him again, I think. And thankfully, he's still talking to me, so I must have not done anything too dodgy. So, mate, welcome. Thank you for coming on. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I'm very good. I'm obviously looking forward to the weekend. I know you don't have a game tonight, but for me, we don't have that this season. We don't have Europe yet, so got to wait till the weekend. But I'm good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So obviously this is being recorded. It's Thursday. We do have our Bologna game. Our preview for the Bologna game is out now on YouTube with the wonderful Neil from the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. So please, if you haven't watched that already, go and check that out. And if you're new here and you haven't already, make sure you hit that like, hype, and subscribe button and join us on the Villa journey. So, mate, let's just get into it again. So, Sunderland at home for us. This is a massive one from a Villa perspective, mate. I think if we can get a win on Sunday, and Chelsea drop points, it kind of guarantees us Champions League football in the route of the league position. So it's massive. I think it feels like almost like a pressure game. From a Sunderland perspective, right? Obviously, you're challenging for those European spots. Is it the same amount of pressure? Are you thinking it's a must-win, or are you kind of just,
For me, for most Sunderland fans, I think the ultimate aim is just pick up as many. It sounds stupid, but just pick up as many points as we can for the remainder of the season. When we're looking at the fixtures on paper that we've got left, Villa away is probably one of the harder games. Well, it's definitely one of the hardest. Maybe the hardest game that we have. We've still got to play Man United at home and Chelsea at home last game of the season, but Villa away is an easy place to go. You'll know that you welcome teams every week, and teams struggle. I think. Obviously, we played you at the Stadium Light right at the start of the season, and you weren't doing that great then. It was when a few random shouts, a few wild hooks were going in that, Villa might be in the round going down, but obviously Emery's turned it round like bang, 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 win, win, win.
Well, mate, if I remember correctly, we hadn't even scored a goal when we came to your place. I was nervous because you were on absolute fire. And
maybe it was then, yeah. And obviously, he's went 1-0 up, but we had 10 men from well within the first half. So in our early stages of the season, when we were looking for points anywhere we could get them, that was one that people were looking at where we got a point against Villa, but we only had 10 men. Despite the fact they're in whatever Villa were in, whatever state you were in, it's still a big point. So I think it's a similar thing where if this weekend we can go to Villa Park and we can get 1 point, I'd take a point now if you offered me right now. But obviously, it could change on the day. Villa could be knackered from the European game, or they could be firing, and you'd be like, oh well, I'm happy it was only 3-0 instead of 10. You've got to wait and see how it turns out on the day, haven't you?
Absolutely. I'm really intrigued to see how Unai Emery kind of approaches the game, because in his press conference yesterday for tonight's match, he spoke about kind of he's going to put out his strongest team. He wants to get through to the semi-final. And I just, we are a couple of suspensions away in the Europa League from players or yellow cards from getting players suspended for that first leg. And I don't know if he's going to risk players or rest them. So I'm really intrigued in terms of if he's going to go all at it for both games and just stick with more or less the same team, right? And we've had players coming back like Yuri Tillemans and John McGinn who have been out injured for a few weeks, and the difference that makes. But we haven't been playing particularly well, mate, if I'm honest, right? So for this Sunday game, I'm a little bit nervous because I don't think there's any expectation, and we'll get into your lineup shortly, and you sent me your lineup playing a back five. So straight away when you sent me that, I was like, if they stick behind the ball, right, and we just have to try and break you down. If you've watched any of the Villa matches over the last season, really, mate, teams we struggle against, teams that either come and really press us really high, right, and try and win the ball back like quickly, or teams that just sit back and go, right, okay, invite you on, come and break us down. And with a back five, I don't know if you watched the Nottingham Forest game in particular. We had little moments where we did okay, but for large parts of that, we were stifled. They defended well. We were wasteful in possession. We was just giving the ball away so consistently, mate. And I just think it sounds like Sunderland are going to set up to do that, to frustrate us, hit us on the counter attack, and I think that's where the joy will come. So I'm really nervous about Sunday's game.
That's great news for me.
What are your thoughts on it?
When you say about the back five, I'll start there.
Yeah,
we've been very lucky in that our managers, he's developed almost like two different, not different teams in terms of personnel, but in terms of the way we set up teams that he's not scared is the wrong word, but teams that he respects enough that they know they're going to come and have a go. So when we've played the big six so far this season, bar Tottenham, we've set up with the back five to, especially at the start of the season when we didn't know what we were working with ourselves, is we've sat in and then not gone long like Route 1 football, but we've soaked pressure. And right at the preliminary phases of the season at the start, we were so much better without the ball than we were with the ball. We were looking to break teams down, let them overplay, we'll pinch it. Can we have a spell? Can we maybe nick a goal from there? Now, a lot of teams he played a 4 against with a 5 in midfield and a 1 striker. And that's teams that he maybe doesn't not respect. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but teams that he isn't as he's not faithful. He doesn't think they're going to have a lot of the ball. They're not going to dominate as well. He wants to go and have a go at those teams. But like I said, teams where he respects them in possession, he wants us to soak it up and then try and get what we can from it. So it could go either way, but my prediction, like you asked for, my prediction is that we'll play the 5 back because Villa are a team that can hurt us if they have a lot of the ball. We want them to do that because the longer they've got the ball, the more thinking they've got to do and the less thinking we've got to do. We've just got to stay compact and stay in the shape, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the crucial sign because you're right. I think we have got players that can hurt you. I think from a Villa perspective, we've James and I have spoke about this on the podcast about Morgan Rogers and I guess John McGinn being the 2 important players there in terms of that McGinn's been our driving force, and since he's come back, we've looked better, right? But Rogers is the first player I think in Premier League this season that's played over 100 games, right, in terms of international stuff, and he looked a little bit tired on Sunday, and there's a fair. We went in on him on our Monday show, kind of just give him a rest, right? But Unai Emery, stickler for kind of his favourites, if you will, and Rodgers has played more or less every minute. And while Rodgers is our danger man and has the potential to turn any game on its head, like if you watched any of the Nottingham Forest game on Sunday, mate, you wouldn't have been worried. Like he couldn't control the ball. It like he'd never played football before. I was like, mate, wait. And we had this similar, like. I will say that from a Villa perspective, we've had a fantastic season, right? And it always feels like we're being hypercritical. So when teams come to Villa Park and I go, well, we're going to set up with a back 5 and we're worried about these kind of players, I'm like, you go, yeah, honestly, I think we've just somehow managed to scrape through this season. Like we started really poorly, like when we first played you up at the stadium, and like couldn't score a goal. We did manage one against you. Then we had that 11 game where we won 11 games in a row, which was obviously the foundations of where we are, right? Because any teams like that. And then come January where there was all this title talk, so expectation versus reality, right? And you go, obviously, at the start of January, I was in that kind of, look, let's just take one game at a time, but we have to be in the conversation because we are where we are. We're pushing 3rd, 2nd place, right? And then January hit and we lost Boubacar Kamara, we lost John McGinn, we lost Yuri Tillemans all in the space of like 2 weeks, I think it was. And our midfield obliterated. And it just, mate, it felt like it was going to nosedive. But we've been really lucky, I feel. I feel like teams in and around us have all dropped points, like Chelsea, Liverpool, been nowhere near the standard of what they probably should be, right? And now they're and then Man United obviously went on a run, and then they lose to Leeds on thingy. You could do us a favour when you say they've got to play you at the stadium, and like, please bring that in. So all of a sudden now we've got to this business end of the season where I think I said off air, like it's not about performances for Villa, it's about results, right? Because we know we've got a good team, but it's can we just kind of grind these key outs? Like for us, our running is it's you guys on Sunday. We've got Fulham away, then we've got I think it's Burnley, Spurs, Liverpool, and City. Right, and it's kind of
not easy,
right? But we've got 3 home games left. We've got yourselves, we've got Spurs, and we've got Liverpool right at home. Now, I think 2 wins for us will get us over the line for Champions League because I think other teams will drop points. I can't see Man United kind of, after their defeat on thing. I think they'll drop some points. I think Chelsea look anything but kind of getting it. So, yeah, it comes down to Sunday, mate. I think as much as, I'm thinking on paper, you go, okay, Sunderland just outside those European spots. However, can we just get them on an off day? Like you said before the Newcastle game, you'd struggle to put a run of results together, right?
Yeah, we really had. We lost 4 in a row. So I think the first game we lost was a home game, and as soon as we lost one home game, we lost 4. Sorry, actually, that's incorrect. We lost against Arsenal away, which was, for me, I mean, a lot of fans will say there's no such thing as a free hit. We weren't lucky. We played well and drew them at the Stadium of Light, but then when we played them away, I don't think many people that were realistic expected us to get anything out of that game. We got beat 3-0 off Arsenal, and then I think the following game was Liverpool at home, which we lost our first home game. We didn't play great, but we weren't awful. We only lost 1-0. Then we lost the 2 that followed that, which is like, then we weren't used to losing that many games in a row.
Yeah.
We got a draw away at Bournemouth. Then we beat Leeds. The one when we beat Leeds, we had quite a few injuries, so I think it was the first game Roofs didn't play as well, which is obviously massive in terms of what he's done for Sunderland this season. Then, when we thought we were out of that dark little tunnel, we went and got beat off Port Vale, which is a terrible result.
It's like you were focusing on the league, mate.
Yeah, and then in terms of the league, our next game was Brighton at home, and we played terrible in that game and got beat 1-0. But then, as you mentioned, by the time, like I said, when we played Newcastle, obviously that mixed form, it isn't great. There's a couple of wins in there, but it isn't fantastic at all. It's not desirable. We then went and beat Newcastle, and then since then we've beat Tottenham. We're playing you on Sunday, as we've mentioned, but we haven't won 3 games in a row all season. So maybe it's going to fall at the right time for you.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so from a Villa perspective, mate. And obviously, if you lose the game, it's not going to have a massive impact on your season. You're safe, which I'm assuming that's what the plan was, right? So before we get into the team lineups and stuff, let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously, newly promoted team, home record has been sensational, really. So what are you putting that down to, mate? What's been the secret of the success?
I think if you look past the fact we signed about 20 new players, I think maybe at home it was the atmosphere in certain games, especially the one we don't always have the greatest atmosphere. I think that goes under the radar a bit. I think Sunderland fans are great, especially the ones that follow away, fantastic. Yeah. But at home, the Stadium of Light isn't always the best atmosphere unless it's, say, a night game or every important game. It's electric. But for your average 3 o'clock Saturday game, it's like I think that's probably the same. I think that's probably the same in a lot of grounds, but obviously
100%, mate.
A lot of fans don't want to admit that about their own team. But they get behind the team. And I think in terms of when it's mattered, first game of the season, West Ham at home, no matter who you play on that first game of the season, as a newly promoted team, it is a hard game, without a doubt. Yeah. And we went and won that game 3-0. And then everyone was like, we're going to be all right. Maybe we'll be all right. But then we went and lost against Burnley away 2-0. So then everyone was like back below earth, not even down to earth, but below earth. Thinking, right. If the teams that come up with us can beat us, that's going to be a problem. But then we went and beat Brentford. We got a draw with Palace away right at the start of the season. So we started just picking up results. And we mentioned expectation just there. When we first come up, the hope was, we'll take 17th. But then I think it's something that's contextual. So as we keep moving, we keep picking up these points. It wasn't long before people would be disappointed with finishing down there. And then we got a bit higher than mid-table and it's like, well, this would be great, but it's not going to last forever. And then we start to slip off a bit, which in Sunderland fashion, even last season in the Championship, started really well at the top and then hit a period of inconsistent form, slipped down. And then by the time the playoffs came, we were that well within the playoffs, higher than 6th, that we didn't win for like 6 games directly before the playoffs because they could take the foot off the gas because they knew they were stuck where they were stuck because they started so well. And in the Championship especially, it was about how well can they play before they hit that inconsistent form patch. And it was quite well, so that's how they got in the playoffs. But in terms of the Premier League, we were also doing quite well before we started this little bad run that I've just explained through to you of these results. So now that we're at the business end of the season and we've managed to pick up 2 wins, and because the table is so tight, that puts us where we are. And Europe might be a bit of a stretch if you want to be like pretty switched on and not get carried away with your team. But it's not impossible because it is only 2 or 3 points, and it only takes. So we could be sat here on Sunday night, and we could be completely out of the race for Europe, but we could also beat Villa, and we could be well within it. And because it's so tight that it might just keep switching around. Is it the 6 or is it maybe another 7 games that we've got left? So that it might just keep switching, and it's the same with Villa, I imagine, in the Champions League race, that results can just bounce among each other. But I think any Sunderland fan would have been more than happy if if the league stopped right now. They would have been happy with this going into the season without doubt.
Yeah, mate, you make some valid points, and I think, going back to your team about the atmosphere at stadiums, mate, we have the same at Villa Park. We've had things. Ollie Watkins came out in January and said, it should be better and sort of. So we've got a big fan forum thing trying to get atmosphere raised. There's a thing tonight before the game. Actually going to give Sam from True Adventures, by the way. We're doing this guy wrote a song. He's on social media. He's brilliant. He's a songwriter. And we're trying to get a new chant going to get the atmosphere ready for the European nights, for, just general stuff, because lots of fans are complaining about it. So you're not alone, mate, there. And then the other thing you mentioned, like you say, when you got promoted, and like you said, 20 new signings, you always go, shit, that's a lot. Because Villa did that. Well, we had to, when we got promoted under Dean Smith from the Championship, most players had to leave. You try and reinforce for the Premier League, to the best of your ability, right? And you go, shit, we've actually got 20 new players here. How are they going to play together? That's a whole new squad.
It's always
never played football together.
Always a task, yeah.
Right. And but one stood out for me, mate, from the start of the season. I'm really keen to get your thoughts, and I mentioned it off air. Is obviously Xhaka. Ex-Arsenal player from Leverkusen, lots of experience in the Premier League. And, I'm not saying one man makes a team, but my word, when he was out of your squad, I remember when you lost, I think it was to West Ham away without Xhaka playing. Terrible. I couldn't believe the difference. From watching the week before, it was. So what's your thoughts on the legend that is that man?
Yeah, with him, there's 2 parts to it. There's a part where you can obviously see it's not even if he plays well, it's that he's raising the game of the players around him. And it's just his experience and his leadership skills are obviously fantastic. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't slag him off every now and again, because I do. So anyone that knows me that's watching will be saying, why are you lying? I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be totally honest with you that it also comes down to the fact that a lot of people from outside that haven't watched Sunderland, you can tell straight away, because till about Christmas, what they would say is, Sunderland are doing really well. And then the next word they would say, the next words are Granit Xhaka. We're like, he is good. He does make the team great. But at the same time, he isn't the only reason Sunderland have done so well. Yeah. And I remember saying it to Jay Bothroyd on Sky, and I was like, look, he is good. And you can see that. And if you know anything about football, you know that you don't have to do just things on the ball to be a good player. It's about everything.
100%.
You know, if you know football, and he is good, and we are a better team when he plays, but we're not useless when he doesn't play. And I think the determining factor for me, and that was that our joint biggest win this season, he didn't play at all. Yeah, you would have rather he played it. And as soon as he came back from injury, when he came back, we were like, thank God he's back in the team, because we can build from there. But if he's injured or whatever, it's not ideal, but it isn't the end of the world. But I think in terms of signings that we brought through the door, like we said, we brought in that many. A lot of the players we brought in, no one had ever heard of in Sunderland, and that's fine, because he's brought in a lot of young players, and their first notable club for a lot of them is Sunderland. So this is the stage where they're going to go and make a name for themselves, and can we sell them on in the future? But Xhaka, when he came in, was obviously he's not a household name necessarily, but if you know the Premier League, you will know who he is. If you know the Champions League, you should know who he is, so on and so on. So we were very, very happy with that signing, and I think Granit Xhaka coming is probably the catalyst for a lot of other players seeing the vision of the project. So we're a club in development at the moment. We might want to say we're established in the Premier League and whatever, and we're doing really well. But the goal is to keep building and to keep bringing these players in. And I'm not saying that we want to be exactly like Brighton, where we just rotate these players and sell them on. Yeah. If we have to sell, say, Roofs and Siddiqui in the summer, as long as we get the money for them, you've got to trust that our ownership are going to invest that money in another 10 players no one's ever heard of. And out of the squad we got now, only 4 of them say, only 4 of these 10, 15 players they go and bring in have got to be any good to add to what we've already got. So I'm very happy with Xhaka, and I'm very happy with the rest of the players that we brought in.
Yeah, so I guess, like you say, it's that building process, right? Newly promoted seed. If you stay in the division, it's about reinvesting again. Yes, you might lose some players, but you've got to get to, I guess similar to Villa, right? We've had to
Yeah,
rebuild,
100%.
and you get to a certain level, right? So you stay in the Premier League, right? Then you get in the European places, right? Now you're in the European places. Now we can start to build in a different way with different caliber of plan and so forth, right? So I guess the
Yeah.
dream for Sunderland fans, right, is that European qualification. Like you say, it's so tight in that
I think it'd be
table that
so funny more than
it
anything
would.
else.
I mean, that would be, for me, bar outside of Villa, the story of the season, a newly promoted side to come up and qualify for Europe. Mate,
Yeah,
when has that ever happened in the Premier League?
I'm not too sure. I think the year before COVID, maybe Sheffield United came very close. But I think as much as it would be absolutely hilarious for everyone in Sunderland, like at the same time, especially if it was at the expense of Newcastle not qualifying, that would be the ultimate cherry on the ultimate cake. Like, but at the same time, there's two sides of the coin in Sunderland. I know you didn't ask me about this, but it's worth telling you that there's a
No,
lot
let's
of
do it.
fans. There's a lot of fans that are like, get your passports ready, get your passport. I don't care what happens to us next season, as long as we get Europe for one season, go back down to League One on the last. But on the other side, there's people. I'm sort of in the middle, but there's people on the other side that are like, but you get Europe, you get in the Conference League. See, even if you get knocked out in the group, you still get your 3 away days in Europe. That would be like generational in Sunderland because of where we are now. But people are saying, at what expense is it? Because often the pattern, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen, but the pattern shows that teams that go into Europe are often struggling domestically at the same time. When,
Yeah,
when it's like, I don't want to use Newcastle again, but they're a perfect example of the
yeah, they
seasons
are.
when they compete twice a week and on two fronts, they've struggled domestically. And it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
would you take coming 18th and going down, but you had Europe? And it's like, that's not necessarily going to happen, but it's always something that could happen. But I think, especially like I said, if it was at the expense of Newcastle, it'd be hilarious.
Well,
So
mate, imagine Sunderland qualify for Europe, Newcastle don't, and you've taken 6 points off them. Like it's just
it'd be great. It'd be almost like we told you that was going to happen before the start of the season.
Mate, that is if Colesberg did football seasons, that's the
Yeah,
one, right?
that's
As a fan,
the top.
you'd be buzzing. Right, mate. Let's get back to the game then. We'll go
Yes.
through. We talked about your back five, so let's if you want to, we'll get your line up on the screen, and if you want to talk us through it, just give us a rundown of who's who really. Because I said to you off Ed, and like it's weird. I'm putting this squad together, and a couple of these players I don't really know, and like you said, they're new signings that Sunderland fans haven't heard of. So who are the threats, mate? Who could do us damage on this game on Sunday?
I'm just going to lead in with it's obviously the way I've said to it, but the fullbacks I'd swap them over and the wingers I'd swap them over. However, the team that's on the screen, it's not necessarily the team that I would pick if I was doing the team. However, I know you mentioned it earlier. You said about managers having their favourites. If a player has Luke O'Nien played at the weekend against Spurs, he had a decent game. He nearly gave away a pen, however he didn't. So he had a decent game, and Labrie seems to like him. Ballard's out injured as well, and you'd think he was going to be such a big miss for us, but we've done all right when he hasn't played. Yeah, he's brilliant. Like he's fantastic, but that's probably, if he was going to play a 5, they're the 5 he put across the back. Ronaldo, when he's played, has been exceptional, but he has had moments like when he got sent off against Villa in the first game, where he's been a bit clumsy. But when he's played, he's been so good, especially for a free signing at the age of, I think, he's 31. That was a great transfer in. At the back, Mukiele has been one of the players of the season for me at Sunderland. He's been absolutely fantastic when he's played. I think maybe he goes slightly unnoticed because of some of the other players, but he is brilliant. Alderete is obviously, he was another cheap buy from Getafe in the Liga, but I think he was in the Liga team of the season last year. Brilliant player. Obviously, you've spoken on Xhaka and Siddiqui. I think Xhaka and Siddiqui allow the other of the two of them to get better because Xhaka does the covering that Siddiqui needs to do, and then Siddiqui helps Xhaka, and they complement each other so well. The player I've taken out that played against Spurs is Diarra. I think he has been good in some games, but he hasn't been as good as others. Especially if you can only have 2 midfielders, the 2 I'd take would be Xhaka and Siddiqui. Lafy, for me, I think his best position is through the middle. But when you've got Xhaka, Siddiqui and Diarra, that's 3 already. We've only got 2 spaces there. So when he's wanted to fit Lafy in the team, he's the player that he's put him out wide. He played him out wide in the Championship as well, and he was really good there. But he's our creativity. Lafy is he's our player that can make something out of nothing, kind of, going forwards. He's had some not the best games, I will be honest, but at the same time, there's also been games where he is the entire difference. For me, also on the other wing, I'll just speak you through the full team. On the other wing, we've got Chris Rigg, who he's been in okay form. He had a really good game against Newcastle. He played quite well against Brighton when we got beat. He scored his first Premier League goal. It was given offside, which I thought was really, I mean, it's the rules, but I thought it's probably quite harsh considering he's only like 17, 18-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Labrie seems to trust him. I'm not 100% sold on that he's good enough at this level, but to get him a few minutes, he's only going to develop if he plays. And I think it's maybe more valuable to give him Prem minutes than to loan him back to the Championship. But he's definitely a player that he could go on to be great, or he could go on to be like Bojan and he could just absolutely hit the floor. I think his development at this point is crucial. And then up front, we've been through Mayende Isidore, who scored against Villa at the stadium, but now we've settled on Brobbey. We had been playing sort of a role for him where one striker will play the first 60 minutes, chase the defence down, make them tired, and then the other striker will come on with 30 to go.
Yeah.
With a bit of like a different strategy. But I'm sure you'll have seen in your own social media, your own media, anywhere you look, there's stuff about Brian Brobbey, because he might be the best ever panic buy. Because we had Mark Gui on loan from Chelsea and he got injured, so we had to send him back, or someone else got injured, so we sent him back. And then I think it was deadline day just before we bought this lad from Ajax for 20 million just because he was available. The plan was never to have Brobbey, so he might be the best panic buy, and he's definitely one of the best hold-up strikers, definitely that I've seen play football, because he's massive. No one can get anywhere near him. I'm sure you've seen the clips from the game against Spurs. How he absolutely bullied Spurs' defence in. If he can do half of that against Villa, mate, I'll take that as a good performance, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the standout for me, mate. I wanted to talk about him really because he looks like an absolute beast of a man, like from what I've seen this season, and I think it's the physical. Like I say, if you looking at that lineup and how we set up with a 4-2-3-1, obviously, and it's let's bring us back to the main screen, and it's kind of it's one of those where we struggle for pace in behind us, right? So if you can nullify our threat, right, Robbie could play a massive part in that in terms of bullying. If Pau Torres starts, which I think he will, he's not the strongest, right? And he's not the quickest.
That's right, mate. That might be where he's combated, because Robbie is the strongest, full stop. Like, his role really for us is he started it like, if we can break out, can he hold the ball in a high position? Doesn't have to beat his man. His job is simply to hold the ball. And it was really effective. If he couldn't find a pass, no one's taken off him. So if he couldn't find a pass, it was, can he win a foul really high up the pitch? But then what started happening is he pulls back almost as much as the defender's pulling him. So when he wasn't winning fouls and refs weren't giving it, he lost a lot of effectiveness for a period. But now he seems to have like found an in-between where that he's pulling back, but he's also winning fouls. So now he's providing that effectiveness. We're getting the best out of him at the moment. But there has been the opposite side where it's a bit of a tussle, a bit of a pull and a push, and refs aren't going to give it. And if he's not winning any fouls, then he's lost his effectiveness, which for us that's his value, is how effective he can be.
Absolutely. I think if he targets Pau Torres, I think what'll happen is Konza will try and pick him up, right? But Pau Torres is the weak link in our defence in terms of players like that. He's not a weak link. He's very good, Torres, when the player's in front of him. And actually, with you sitting so deep with a back five, potentially, Torres is capable of playing through balls. Is brilliant. But defensively, when teams do get at us, he looks, if you get him turning back towards his own goal as well, like he struggles. So, but that will be, I mean, our starting lineup, I think, will be, this is my kind of thing, what I would go with on Sunday, not necessarily Unai Emery, but it would be Maatsen at left back. I just think he offers a little bit of pace going forward. And when you've got a team that are sitting deep behind you, you need someone who's quick to be able to pass and move going forward to create a little bit of space.
Yeah, 100%.
Then you've got obviously. Then you've got Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa as centre backs, Matty Cash at right back. He's been arguably one of our best players this season, which is weird because last season he was most Villa fans wanted him gone. And he
that
didn't start.
Happens though. That happens.
And he didn't start the season particularly well, but in that 11-game run, I think he's been one of our most improved players. And now our midfield's looking a little bit more solid, mate. So I think it will be probably a Nana, Tillemans, and then Barkley as a number 10. And then we've got, sorry, my phone keeps going off, which is annoying. And then you've got, we'll have probably Rodgers on the left, who, if he's still got any energy left, because I think he needs a little bit of a rest, but he's a danger man, and Emery just keeps on going with him. He did it last season. We'll have McGinn on the right, then with Watkins up top to try and, score a goal. But everyone knows who watches this podcast, mate. I'm not Ollie Watkins' biggest fan, right? Mainly because he's not been as clinical, nowhere near clinical as he was. Like last Thursday against Bologna, superb game, mate. He was probably his best game in the Villa shirt. Held the ball up really well, brought the people into play. Got his goal. It was a really dominant display. And then Sunday against Forest, mate. It looked like he hadn't played football before.
Well, I think that's probably the most frustrating thing is when you've seen what a player can give you, and you're not getting it out of them all the time. So I know did you go and sign Tammy Abraham in January as a number 2? But when you've got your number 1 choice, if that's Watkins, and you've seen what he can do, and he's done it for England in terms of what I've seen. And if something just seems to happen overnight and you can't get that out of him every week, you become frustrated. Of course you do, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, it's just like after the Bologna game last Thursday, he kind of on TV, he was like, it was a brilliant interview. He was like, I'm hungry, I'm ready for the end of the season, and then his performance against Forest just wasn't great. And I was just like, mate, you can't say that and then put in a performance like that. Like, it's like, you want to see energy.
Becomes frustrating.
Yeah, and you want to see that hunger, right? So it's like, I think it's going to be a very tight game, mate, if I'm honest. I think with that setup, I'd love for us to nick a win. It would mean for us, like I say, if Chelsea drop points at the weekend, I think that would mean Champions League qualification. But you've got something to play for. I said this would be a tricky fixture. Like you said, with how tight the league is, if you win, it could put you right back in the European qualification. So it's like madness, right? So anyway, where's my phone? Last thing, mate, before we go, because I've got to shoot off. That's why my phone's pinging. I'm really sorry. But score prediction, right? So if we usually like a hand up thing, right? So for your right hand, that's the Villa score, right? Because that's the home team, and your left hand will be Sunderland, right? So you can go first as you're the guest. Let me know what you think the score's going to be.
I'm going to go Aston Villa 1, Sunderland 1.
Oh, 1-1.
I think it's a safe prediction. I think, especially when I do the analysis predictions, I try and be. I know you're really good at them, but I try and not just go very safe option. But I think if we score first, then I think we'll draw. But I think if you score first, I think it could be a completely different game.
Well, here's my analysis prediction, mate, and I hope it's going to be my 12th correct one. So I'm going Aston Villa 1, Sunderland 0. I think it will be tight. Okay. I think just the one goal, because like you say, setting up with a back 5, I don't think we're going to get loads of chances. I think it will come down to someone being clinical, maybe Morgan Rodgers. I think he's got he owes us a goal. People have been on his back, and I think he's got the quality. He has moments in games, nearly every game, but he has looked a little bit tired. But this one, hopefully, he can be the difference. That's my prediction, mate. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
All good, mate. Anytime.
We'll obviously we'll be around on Monday for our weekly thoughts and review of this game. And I don't know, we might do a reaction to it on Sunday night, mate. So I don't know if you're available to jump on if you win and kind of come and get a thing, only very briefly, but I'll let you know. I've got to speak to James, he's coming over today, so I don't know if we're going to do that yet. But if we do the reaction on Sunday evening, and you want to jump on just to kind of rub it in our faces, or we can rub it in yours, we'll take it from there. But mate, always wanted to talk to you. Thank you. I'm so glad that I didn't offend you majorly at the Finalysis launch party, because I was a bit worried about that. I remember saying to James, I know that I've asked everyone to come on the podcast, but I think I ended it really badly. But so quite excited. Really, really good, insightful points, mate. Clearly knowledgeable about Sunderland. So go and check him out. If you send me your socials, mate, I'll link them into the bio. This will be out tomorrow. So check this out for the game on Sunday. We'll release it probably tomorrow morning. And I'll send you the link. And if you want to share it on your socials and stuff, so people can watch it, that'd be great. All right, mate. So good luck for Sunday. Well, not too much. And we'll speak to you again soon. And as always, people, if you've got to 35 minutes, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one. And as always, Every week we follow the boys in Claret and Blue. Peace.